Jiro is a lonely loser who gets ignored by girls because he likes gooning to 2D characters, but his life changes when he gets into a fake marriage with a popular baddie, and makes him realize that married cheeks squeezes the best. At the start, a busty pink-haired baddie, Akari, is praying to the anime gods and begging them so she will get paired up with a handsome Squidward-looking dude in the school's marriage practical. From out of nowhere, another chick, Shiori, appears, also here to pray, but she accidentally slips and grabs herself some cake, which surprises Akari. They both know each other, and after realizing they are both here to bag themselves a handsome hunk, Akarin runs away embarrassed, but Shiori throws a coin and continues her prayer for the marriage practical. While others are nervous about the marriage practical, where boys and girls are paired to simulate and practice as a married couple, Jiro is too busy playing his video games like the losers who watch these videos. His buddy, Ka-mo, tells him that he should play the newest games where the 3D graphics make it easier for them to bust, but Jiro refuses to do so as the old-school graphics give him the freedom to imagine the characters as Shiori. Just then, Akari and her gang show up, telling these losers to move out of their way, and they follow her order like good little slaves. While Ka-mo glazes Akari and considers her to be the peak of woman hotness, Jiro disagrees, stating that she's a disgusting dog with a gooch more fishy than the ocean. Suddenly, Minami, a handsome dude that Akari likes, pops up, and Akari wastes no time glazing him for being cute, but Minami simply appreciates her praises. Later in class, Jiro sits next to Shiori, the girl he loves, and as childhood friends, they are comfortable expressing how anxious they are about the marriage practical. Then the teacher explains to them the marriage practical system, where students are paired to live together like a married couple and are monitored, but she adds that out of fear of getting clapped, the couple will sleep in desperate rooms. Jiro wants nothing more than to be paired up with Shiori, so he tests his luck through his video game, and on it, he manages to get the worst luck possible as Jiro gets paired up with Akari. She freaks out about being paired up with a limp sausage loser like Jiro. But after he manages to calm down her anger, he points out how they both have someone in mind that they actually want as their partners. Akari easily guesses that Jiro drools for Shiori, which surprises him, and she teases him about how Shiori is way too good for him, and that she's probably getting another dude's pipe right now. Suddenly, their points are decreased by 3, which scares them, and Akari tells him to quickly get along with her before they reach minus 10,000. Akari explains that they need to increase their points, reach A rank, and change their pairings. Jiro doesn't know that stipulation like an idiot, so Akari shows him the rulebook, which shows that if a couple reaches the A rank by the end of the month, they are allowed to change partners. While Akarin wants nothing more than to pair with Minami, Jiro brings her back to reality as they need to act lovey-dovey to make that happen, which is impossible. But Akari refuses to back down as she tempts him with her melons, stating that her milk pillows will cream him dry. It gains them a point which motivates Akari to do more, but Jiro pushes her away with the excuse that he wants to buy a drink, and when he leaves, Akari is crying, as just like Jiro, this is the first time she acts like this. At the vending machine, Jiro buys drinks for himself and Akari when he spots Minami walking alongside Shiori, who is a happily married couple. Jiro starts running away in pain, knowing that his precious Shiori is getting clapped by Minami. Later, Akari mocks Jiro for being depressed about losing Shiori to Minami's pickle, but when her roast doesn't work, Akari switches to calming him down lovingly. It surprises him that she did that, but Akari asks him to take it seriously and for them to actually pretend to be married. While Jiro is indecisive, Akari pulls his head to see what her mom made and tells Jiro that for the sake of him laying Shiori the pipe, Jiro has to play as Akari's husband. Just then, the doorbell rings, and when Jiro takes a look, Ka-mo is on the other side inviting Jiro to come with him to Comic-Con, where sweaty dudes glaze over cosplayers. But just as he's about to leave, Akari demands for Jiro to kiss her on the cheek so they can add another point. Both Ka-mo and Akari are screaming for Jiro's attention, which confuses him, but having enough, Jiro channels his big willy energy and kisses Akari on the lips before leaving with Ka-mo. He leaves Akari on the floor folded and the floor drenched as she can't believe what just happened. A week later, Jiro dreams about Shiori waking him up and him asking for a kiss, but Shiori bangs her head on him as it turns out Akari is the one waking him up with a frying pan. In his mind, Jiro still feels Akari's lips on his, but when he's phased out, Akari scolds him for not helping her cook. At school, Jiro is doing his errands when a teacher pops up to tell him to meet her with Akari by his side after school. Just then, he spots Shiori with Minami, and she embraces him, which hurts Jiro to see. He gets depressed in class, and seeing Shiori beside him makes him imagine Shiori telling Minami how much she prefers his handsome mug compared to Jiro's clapped face. It starts raining after school, and while Jiro doesn't bring an umbrella, Kamo does but refuses to share as his love is only reserved for his 2D girlfriend. Just then, Akari appears and is in a rush to go to karaoke with her friends and Minami, but while Jiro informs her that the two of them need to talk to the teacher, Akari goes anyway, leaving Jiro to deal with it alone. He gets scolded by the teacher, and she informs him that his relationship with Akari is at E rank and that he won't graduate if it stays like this. Meanwhile, Akari is singing karaoke songs with Minami, but while she tries her best to get in his pants, Minami keeps his distance from her. Back with Jiro, he's still waiting for the rain and imagining Akari successfully getting jiggy with Minami when Shiori pops up from nowhere to sit beside him. They both don't have an umbrella, which causes Shiori to also get stuck, and Jiro is happy about it, but she suddenly hugs him, which almost short-circuits his monkey brain. It turns out she is scared of a doodle of a bug on the wall, and Shiori explains that it also happened this morning. Jiro realizes what he saw this morning was a misunderstanding, and that Shiori hugged Minami for the same reason. Jiro calls her by her last name, and she expresses how she doesn't like it and how she prefers how she calls her Shiori like before. Suddenly, Minami pops up to pick up Shiori with an umbrella, which surprises her to see that he's back early from his karaoke, but unbeknownst to them, Akari is also there, listening to all of them. Moments later, she approaches the lonely Jiro with an umbrella and takes him home. On their way back, she scolds him for not taking his chances to rizz up Shiori's cheeks, but Jiro can only apologize for being a wimp. Akari scolds him even harder, saying that for the sake of him clapping Shiori and her getting clapped by Minami, he needs to bring his A game. Back home, Akari cooks up omelette rice for the both of them, and when she puts some ketchup on it, she writes down a love message like a good wife while also pretending it's her juices on the eggs. She does that to get some points, so Jiro wants to return the favor by offering her a bite of his food. She initially declines, but when Jiro pulls back, she leans forward and eats from his spoon. It creates tension hotter than your mom, but before they go to do anything, Jiro's phone rings, which stops them both, but they are both confused about why both of their hearts are beating so fast. A few nights later, Jiro experiences another wet dream where Shiori begs to sleep with him so she can slobber his baby batter, but before he gets the hawk tua, Akari bangs on his door to wake him up. When Jiro confronts her, she gives him a hug and asks him to accompany her that night. Then, it turns out she needs him to accompany her watch a horror movie, where the movie has a bigger budget than the whole of Blue Lock, and it confuses Jiro on exactly why she asks him for this. Akari explains that her friend told her that watching horror movies together would help them gain points and get closer to the A rank. Akari pulls out matching pajamas for the both of them so they can be a real married couple, and it surprises Jiro that she would spend her own money on this. She tells him to look away so she can change, and he turns around to change into the pajamas himself. Suddenly, lightning strikes, causing a power outage, leaving Jiro and Akari in the dark. He tries to look at Akari, but she jumps into his embrace out of fear of the darkness. He can feel the sensation of her milky melons close to his ding-a-ling, but he quickly realizes how evil he is for taking advantage of this situation. He lights up her face, and when he does, Jiro sees Akari in tears and she starts beating him up, calling him a creep for seeing her broken state. Then, Jiro checks their bedroom doors and realizes that they can't enter without the electricity, and Akari begs him to hurry up and accompany her at the couch. There, Akari snuggles close to him, which almost makes him fold, and asks him to tell her fun stories. Seeing how scared she is gives Jiro an idea, so he does the opposite and tells a scary story. Jiro talks about an ancient well occupied by a ghost who looks like your ex when she is on her period, and it manages to scare Akari. She's angry at Jiro and tells him that Minami would have never scared her in this scenario, but she still holds his hand and states that he's the only one she has at that moment. Jiro starts folding, almost telling Akari how cute she is, but manages to stop himself. Just then, Akari finds the aromatic candle her friend, Natsumi, gave her, and she lights it up to accompany them. It calms them both down with its smell and relaxing atmosphere. As Akari is falling asleep, Jiro is unable to hold himself back, so he embraces her tightly and whispers in her ear how cute she is. Jiro quickly realizes that he screwed up, but is relieved that Akari is already asleep and didn't experience his godly riz. Jiro holds her again and falls asleep next to her, and the next morning, Akari wakes up flustered, still experiencing Jiro's godly riz. Later at school, Jiro finds out that he and Akari have reached B rank after their attempts at being a married couple. However, Akari looks distraught, And when Jiro looks closer, he finds out that the pairing of Minami and Shiori is at E rank. In the following days, Jiro can't help himself but worry about Shiori, and while he's happy to know that her and Minami's relationship is going down the drain, he knows that his and Akari's efforts to reach A rank will be pointless if Shiori and Minami don't also reach it. In the music room, Shiori is listening to her friend, Mei, playing the piano when she notices that Shiori is worried about both her marriage and Jiro getting sick. Meanwhile, Jiro is in his room, bedridden due to the cold, and is a bit annoyed that Akari decided to hang out with her friends when she should have been here taking care of him to get more points. She texts him, telling him to open the door for her as she has forgotten her keys, and he agrees. Just then, the doorbell rings, and while he thinks that it's Akari, when Jiro opens the door, Shiori is outside and ready to take care of him. In a cafe, Akari is hanging out with her girls, Sachi and Natsumi, when they tease him for thinking about Minami's pickle after seeing her deep in her thoughts. They encourage her to eat the pancakes Akari has been craving, which feels like a prince's kiss, but it only reminds Akari of her kiss with Jiro. The girls assume that something happened between her and Minami after the karaoke, but she assures them that they are wrong. Back with Jiro, Shiori informs him that Akari is the reason she is there after Akari asks her to take care of Jiro, and he feels extremely thankful to Akari for playing his wingman. This reminds Shiori of the time when Jiro did the same for her and took care of her, which made her very happy. Shiori changes Jiro's compress, and he can't believe how lucky he is to have someone so cute taking care of him. Then, Shiori borrows his kitchen to cook him something, and while Jiro is happy, he feels scared of getting another heartbreak. In the past, Shiori was about to move schools when Jiro wanted to profess his feelings, but before he got to do it, she asked him to always stay as her friend, breaking Jiro's heart. Shiori pops out with a porridge soup she made for him, and while Jiro eats it deliciously like eating your Mrs. Juices, he realizes that he missed his chance to have Shiori spoon-fed the porridge to him. After finishing it, he praises Shiori for her cooking and tells her how lucky Minami is that he gets to eat her cooking. Shiori informs him that Minami took turns cooking and is actually pretty good at it. But despite both him and Shiori being great spouses, their relationship is going horribly. Jiro tells Shiori that he's willing to help all he can, and he apologizes to Akari as he realizes that he's doing this for his own sake. Shiori expresses how she feels that Jiro would have been a better partner for her considering she's not good with boys, and Jiro encourages her as he believes that she can improve her situation. He quickly hides under the cover out of embarrassment, and after a moment realizes that Shiori is only here because Akari asked her and that she would easily work it out with Minami in the future. Then, when Jiro falls asleep, Shiori talks to him and expresses how happy she is that she gets to share this moment with him. She goes for the kiss, and at that moment, Akari's friends are warning Akari that despite her cute and prudish look, Shiori looks like she can shake the bed and take her Minami away from her. Shiori is about to kiss Jiro, but stops herself out of guilt, remembering how in her version of the past, Jiro friend-zoned her and left her alone to move to another school without ever concluding their feelings for each other. However, Shiori doesn't want that again, and wonders if Jiro would have a different feeling for her this time. Later, Akari is taking a shower when Jiro stands outside the door to thank her for asking Shiori to take care of him. Jiro expresses how from now on, he will try his best as his husband so that she and Minami can be together. But even after hearing this, Akari can't help but feel annoyed by what Jiro said. The next morning, Akari asks Jiro if boys really prefer prude girls like Shiori who use teeth instead of a bad girl like her who gives the best hawk tua. Refusing to answer, Akari threatens that she won't cook for him anymore and demands he give her ideas on how to win Minami over. After seeing the food she made, Jiro suggested that Akari make Minami lunchboxes from her love. For the next few days, Jiro helps Akari with making her lunchboxes by tasting her cooking and grading them from good to idiot sandwich. While Jiro likes all of her cooking, he expresses how he prefers the omelet to be a little sweet, but Akari disagrees as she doesn't care about his preference and thinks that Minami has a more mature taste bud regarding omelets. Jiro then brings his Akari-made lunchbox to school, and Kamo gets extremely jealous, but when he gets jealous, he starts cursing Jiro, telling him to hurry up and expand Akari's sweet domain. He asks Jiro if those things actually happen, and Jiro tells him no and that he should be getting a Nobel Prize for being able to hold back his sausage from slithering into her. Just then, Akari pops up after hearing her name mentioned, and the boys start stuttering, not wanting their group chat exposed to the FBI. She asks again about Jiro's opinion of her food, and again, he tells her that while he likes everything she cooks, he prefers the rolled omelet to be a bit sweet. It starts another argument between the two spouses, and while Kamo is watching, he feels jealous and starts yapping like a Japanese poet about how he wishes to be in Jiro's shoes. The next morning, Jiro exits his room and is greeted by Akari cooking for Minami's lunch that she will bring to him at his part-time job. He praises her for her cooking, and when she asks him to try her omelette, he eats it. He thinks to himself how just like the omelette that is not sweet, his life is the same way as in that moment Akari, who is meant to be his wife, is cooking for another man, while he is also in love with another woman in Shiori. Then, Akari changes her clothes to one that showcases all of her plots, ready to give Minami both the lunchbox and her box, but Jiro feels somewhat jealous seeing her like this, as whenever they went out, she never dressed up like this for him. However, before Akari leaves, she shyly asks Jiro for a goodbye kiss, the same one he gave her before, and he starts panicking. Akari expresses how much it made her feel safe last time, and she wants it again. Jiro folds to her riz and goes for it, but before they tangle tongues, their doorbell rings. He opens it and sees Shiori on the other side, who is here to visit. Shiori presents them with an exquisite-looking homemade apple pie and states that Minami asked her to make some as he likes sweet things. But here, Akari feels down, realizing that Minami does like sweet food after all. Shiori notices the lunchbox, and when she leaves, she feels conflicted about the idea of Jiro going on a picnic with Akari. Then Jiro finishes the failed lunchbox, and when he tries to cheer up the depressed Akari, she expresses how she has nothing to offer after her failed cooking. It surprises him to see the usually cheerful Akari so depressed, so he tries to tell her that she has other great things about him that Minami would like. She asks him what it is, and Jiro, while nervous, tells her how she's the object of every melons-loving man's desires. Jiro starts stuttering at what he's saying, realizing he's making things worse by only painting her as someone hot but shallow. She asks if he also sees her that way, and while he tries to deny it, she can read his body language and lays on top of him, telling him to give her the golden glizzy. She asks him if he ever imagines them making sweet love and tempts him to do it, but before he unravels her body, he imagines the usual Akari and feels uneasy about this. He notices how nervous she is and completely stops her from going further. Despite him actually wanting to lay the pipe, he rejects her as they both have someone they love, and it upsets Akari so much that she declares that they should end their married life. For the following month, the two of them keep their distance from each other for what happened, and because of it, they reach E rank, while Shiori and Minami manage to reach A rank. Then, Kamo confronts Jiro about it, but he tells Kamo to leave him alone. He starts thinking about the moment he stopped himself from getting some action and realizes that Akari was the same as him, as it was both their first times. He remembers how nervous Akari is and sees how much of a pig he is for saying that any dude would love to taste her sweet nectar. Then, Shiori confronts him and asks him to talk privately. She brings him to the rooftop and asks about him and Akari. Jiro expresses how wrong he is for seeing Akari as a $2 rental girlfriend when she's not like that. As his childhood friend, Shiori encourages Jiro, saying how she believes that he can make up with Akari and that she will vouch for him for being a good man. Later, Jiro arrives home, but he goes straight to Akari's room and knocks on it. She opens the door to invite him in, and when he enters, he can't believe how nice it smells. He tries apologizing, and when Akari tries to tell him he isn't at fault, Jiro goes to his knees and apologizes harder. Akari covers herself in her blanket, saying that he should just forget about what happened, but Jiro refuses to do so and tells Akari how right she is when she says that he has wild fantasies about her. However, Jiro tells Akari that the reason he stopped from taking her to Pound Town was because he felt that he should treat her with more care and that he shouldn't tickle his pickle because of the heat of the moment. Jiro lowers down her blanket like opening his wife's veil and expresses to Akari how much he wants to be her husband again. Akari takes both his hands, puts them on her face, and tells Jiro how much she's enjoying their married life and that she actually likes him a lot. Jiro folds and goes for the kiss, but he ends up kissing his own hand after Akari blocks him, and she laughs at his resolve. However, the mood lightens and she welcomes back Jiro as her husband, which Jiro is very happy about. After he leaves, Akari ponders on her balcony, realizing that she told Jiro that she likes him. Some days later, it's gym class, and Akari and her girls are gossiping about their crushes, causing them to get scolded by the teacher. Meanwhile, Jiro is watching her, but when Kamo calls him out for it, he thinks Jiro is staring at Shiori. At that moment, Unami is shooting baskets over everybody like he's flu game MJ, and Jiro notices that both Akari and Shiori are watching, making him realize how inferior he really is. Just then, Kamo tells Jiro a rumor about Shiori and Minami. At the same time, Akari's friends are telling her about the same rumor that says that Minami is not planning to switch partners from Shiori, and that it might be because he got lost in Shiori's sauce. While Akari is still hopeful and refuses to lose, Jiro is completely depressed, and Kamo teases him, saying that Shiori is better off with a hunk like Minami rather than a loser like Jiro. Just then, Jiro imagines Minami like he's a brave knight who defeats the demon lord and someone who the girls would love to get conquered by, while he is there watching like a loser. After gym class, Shiori talks to Jiro, and seeing how depressed he looks, she assumes he has another fight with Akari and advises Jiro to make up. However, Shiori is the reason he's down, and wonders how she would react if she knew. He asks her if she's going to stay with Minami. Meanwhile, Akari is cleaning the gymnasium when Minami pops up from behind her. It startles Akari, and as she steps back, a box falls on her, but Minami manages to push her out of the way and ends up on top of her. When Minami gets up from her body, Akari feels her heart pounding, and she's happy to know that she still has feelings for him. Before Minami leaves the room, Akari asks Minami if he's planning to stay with Shiori, and he tells her that he might, considering things are going well. Just then, Akari starts crying, and when Minami asks her about it, she tries to make an excuse. Minami grabs hold of her face, and when this is happening, Kamo accidentally peeks inside and sees them kissing. Back to Jiro, Shiori tells him that she doesn't know if she wants to switch partners, but she expresses how she's willing to be with him if they reach A rank. Before Jiro tells her how he wants the same thing, Kamo screams at him and tries to tell him what's happening. Jiro begs him to leave, but before Kamo tells him what happened between Minami and Akari, they pop up right behind him. Jiro notices Akari looking sad and wonders what happened. Meanwhile, Kamo starts yapping nonsense as he doesn't know what to do being in the middle of this awkward situation. Just then, Minami calls out for Kamo, and while handing him the gym keys, he rizzes him up. He leaves with Shiori, leaving Jiro with Akari, but before he gets to ask her what's wrong, she gets back, refusing to elaborate. The next day, Jiro overhears Akari's friends talking about how Akari went home early after getting a cold. Then, Kamo scoots around Jiro like he wants to say something to him. When Jiro demands Kamo to spill it out, he tells Jiro that back in the gym, he saw Akari tongue wrestle Minami. While Kamo is expecting an outrage, Jiro calmly tells him that it's okay and that he supports their relationship. Later at home, he enters the apartment to Akari on the couch, and when he greets her, she completely ignores his peasant-like existence. He sits down and apologizes that he's not Minami, but it only piques Akari's interest. She asks him why he said Minami's name, and after forcing him to talk, Jiro tells her how he knows about her kissing Minami, and that he fully supports her in her new relationship. However, Akari starts laughing hysterically, and informs Jiro that he misunderstood as all Minami did was blow away dirt from her eyes, and Jiro realizes how Kamo made him look like a fool. Akari reveals that she's sad because Minami refuses to switch partners, but it makes her realize that he holds no feelings for her. Suddenly, Akari starts crying, and Jiro looks at her crying face, which Akari is embarrassed about, demanding he looks away. So Jiro hugs her tight, which surprises her, and tells her how he's now looking away, and Akari hugs him back. Afterward, while Akari is showering, Jiro regrets his actions of hugging her, deeming what he did as creepy and might put him on the FBI list. Just then, Akari finishes her shower and walks out in his t-shirt, which almost launches his missile vertically. She grabs a popsicle and sits beside him with her melons pressing on him, and Jiro can't help but imagine the popsicle as something else. Jiro assures himself that he's used to this and tries to look hard, but Akari teases him and calls him a liar, knowing that something else is hard. She then talks about the kiss with Minami, and using her hand, she kisses Jiro and assures Jiro that her first kiss was with him and that his lips are the only lips that have tasted hers. Jiro completely freezes, and while Akari is nagging him for taking her first kiss, Jiro can't help himself but feel happy, knowing that his lips are the only lips that conquered Akari's lips. Some days later, Jiro is leaving to go to school when Akari tells him to wait and fix his tie. When he glances at her, he imagines her as his real wife, but Akari gets angry, thinking that he is looking at her milky melons. She suddenly hugs him and tells him to take care of himself at school, which rizzes him up. But before he gets to hug her back, she lets go of her hold and walks away. At school, Jiro walks into class, and Shiori is cleaning the classroom even though it's not her shift. Jiro asks Shiori why she's doing this, and she informs him that her friend Nei asked her to take over her shift and clean the classroom. Despite having to clean the classroom, they are both happy as after Mei plays wingman and gives Shiori her spot, she and Jiro can spend some time together. However, later on, Mei considers Shiori's plan already failed as she hasn't gobbled his glizzy this morning at class, but she encourages Shiori that she should confess her feelings as Jiro is a man who never touched a woman properly before and kisses him before Akari takes him away. Meanwhile, Akari is with her girls and they gossip about how the marriage practice manages to get 10 couples to really date. Akari thinks that those chumps are in the heat of the moment, but after seeing how Akari reacted, the girls start teasing her about Jiro. They state that they will support her with whoever she dates, even if it's the rizless virgin, Jiro, but Akari convinces them and herself that her heart belongs to Minami. Back to school, Jiro and Shiori finish various chores, but realizing it's about to end, Jiro thinks hard of a topic they can talk about. Just then, Shiori brings up a topic about their old teacher who clapped her own cousin, and it manages to get them to talk again. In that moment, Akari is looking for Jiro, and when she finds him with Shiori, she quickly hides from them. She wonders why she needs to hide from them before walking away. Back with Jiro, he is getting rizzed up by Shiori's glimmering eyes, and she asks him to close his eyes and lean down. He starts panicking and does it, thinking his lips are about to get some action, but it turns out that Shiori is getting some chalk from his hair. Jiro starts tweaking over how creepy he is, but at the same time, Shiori is cussing herself out for not kissing him. Later that night, while Jiro is on his balcony, pondering about Shiori, Akari joins him with 2 glasses of warm milk. She asks him about Shiori, and when he tries to lie, saying that she's clapping Shiori, Akari calls him out, knowing his sausage is drier than the Sahara. Just then, Akari asks Jiro to call her by her first name, which surprises him. When Jiro refuses, Akari reminds him how he's willing to call Shiori by her first name, but not his wife, which is her. Despite her best efforts to convince him, Jiro still refuses to do it. Akari expresses how despite having a name that symbolizes the same light that is gleaming down on them from the stars, she herself sometimes feels like she lacks confidence and that having someone like Jiro calling out her name gives her comfort. After hearing this, Jiro calls her by her first name, and while he tries to take it back, Akari refuses and instead begs him to do it again. They start arguing, and it frustrates Akari that she's the only one that called Jiro by his first name as if she's the only one in love. They both freeze in place, realizing Akari just said that she loves him, and before Jiro asks for an explanation, Akari runs back to her room. It causes the both of them to face conflict, not knowing what to do with the feelings they have for each other. The next morning, the teacher informs the students that as part of the marriage practical, their next exam will see the couple's grades combine, and that if they fail, they won't graduate. Jiro can't believe what he's hearing, and he realizes that while Minami and Shiori will be fine, he and Akari are screwed as they both have the combined IQ of 2. After school, Jiro tries to invite Akari to study with him, but Akari tells him that she can't as she's been invited to a karaoke and that boys will be there. She assures him that she will be fine at the exam, but after seeing how unsure she is at saying that, he demands that she cancel her plans and study with him. Akari states that her friends need her at karaoke to fend off the sweaty dudes, but Jiro tells her that he needs her more as her husband. Akari gets flustered hearing this, and while she agrees to go with him, it annoys her knowing that Jiro is doing this for Shiori. Meanwhile, Shiori is teaching Mei biology studies, and to show her appreciation, Mei promises to teach Shiori how to biologically reproduce with Jiro. Shiori gets embarrassed and Mei teases her for also failing to kiss Jiro days before. Back with Jiro, he's struggling to teach Akari as while she's smart, she hates studying. He tries to motivate her to keep going, but she feels down knowing that he's doing this for Shiori. Just then, Akari invites Jiro to do something fun instead of studying, tempting him to give her the D instead of trying to get A's on their grades. But Jiro refuses to fold and orders her to continue studying. He changes strategy by praising her, and when it works, they manage to study without interference. After finishing their studies, Akari thanks her as his teacher, and when she sees that his heart is racing, he sits on his lap to get it to race faster. Jiro tries ignoring her, but with her melons on his body and Akari holding on even tighter, his torpedo is baiting to fly. He slips on the couch and ends up on top of her, but it's too late as he wants to tickle his pickle. Akari realizes that Jiro is lost in her sauce, and deep down, she wants the same thing. However, as Jiro is about to get jiggy, she tells him that his nose is bleeding, which stops them from continuing. It stops their plot progression, and when Akari is laughing at him, Jiro expresses how he feels that Akari has been acting unlike herself the whole day. She reveals that it's because he's only doing this for Shiori, but Jiro assures her that he's doing this to also get Akari with Minami. Akari realizes that if they manage to reach A rank and switch partners, They won't be together anymore, where they lovingly greet each other every morning or use the same fabric on their clothes. And while breathing in that smell, Akari deep down feels that she doesn't want that. The next morning, Jiro greets Akari, and to his surprise, she calls him by his last name. While she acts like her usual bright, loving wife self, she keeps calling Jiro by his last name, unlike usual and without a reason, which bothers Jiro. When Kamo hears about this, he teases him, saying that he's getting downgraded from husband to side piece, but Jiro ignores this tool's words, knowing that he prefers it to wifey. Just then, they walk in on Mei facing a girl's confession, and she rejects the girl, saying that she doesn't want the scissors. Mei hugs the rejected girl, and she asks Mei to call her by her first name once, and when she does, it makes Jiro think. After thinking, Jiro realizes that he missed something about her and recalls how Akari wanted to be called by her first name. Back home, when Jiro is about to shower, Akari comes in happy, not caring about his Willy, and shows him that they both have passed the exam with flying colors. She hugs him, and he asks her to let him shower first. Then, while Akari is drying her hair, Jiro remembers what she asked from him, and he calls her by her first name. Akari doesn't hear it at first, but when she does, she goes back to her flustered self and calls Jiro by his first name. Realizing that she's folding, Jiro keeps spamming her first name like a critical hit, and when she gets too embarrassed, she stops him. She tells him that since they don't have enough time as a couple, she wants him to continue calling her that way. Meanwhile, Mei sees Jiro and Akari's grades, and she warns Shiori about it, stating that if she's not fast, Akari might snag Jiro away from her. Suddenly, Shiori gets hit by a ball which sends her to the nurse's office, but Mei sees this chance and tells Jiro about it. She informs Jiro that Shiori needs him, hands him some food and drink for Shiori, and sends him on his way there. She texts Shiori about her plan, and Shiori prepares herself by dolling up and motivating herself to win Jiro. When he arrives, they're both happy to see each other, but when he hands her the food Mei gave him, he notices the same food he's carrying, and Shiori explains that Minami gave that to her. Shiori points out how Jiro and Akari are doing well, and she expresses how she wants to be in Akari's shoes being Jiro's wife. Shiori confesses how compared to a girl like Akari, she feels like she's falling behind in the plot department, and that she feels nervous around boys and their slimy worms. Jiro assures her that there's nothing wrong with that, and after hearing this, Shiori asks him for a favor and that she wants him to teach her how to kiss properly. He asks her if she's sure to pick him and his crusty lips, and Shiori tells him that there's no one else but him that she wants to practice tongue twister with. They get into a position to kiss each other, and after convincing himself that he is not a wimp, Jiro goes for it. However, Shiori has second thoughts, and when she tries to stop him, the door opens and Sachi walks in, wanting to take a nap. She looks at the bed and sees that there are shoes of two people, and here she assumes that some humping and pumping is happening, so she walks away. During their hide, it left Jiro on top of Shiori with their lips intertwined with each other. Jiro pulls back from her, realizing he screwed up, but she assures him that it's okay, and he runs away from the crime scene. Meanwhile, Akari is waiting for Jiro to text her back when Sachi pops up to tell her what she saw. She informs her about the plotful pumping that is happening in the nurse's office, and Akari can't believe what she's hearing. Just then, she gets a text from Jiro telling her that he was in the nurse's office, and she thinks of the worst scenario. Later, Akari goes to the cafe where Minami is working, and while Minami knows she's there, he ignores her and just gives her a special treat without showing that it's him. Akari realizes she's depressed, and when she goes home, she can't help but feel conflicted knowing that Jiro claps Shiori behind her back even though Minami is his first love. Even though she tries to convince herself that everything is fine, she feels jealous knowing that another woman has Jiro's heart on a string. When Akari enters the house, she looks for Jiro and finds him sleeping on the couch with the house messy. She gets pissed seeing this but quickly calms down when she sees that Jiro was actually waiting for her to come home so they can hang out and watch movies together. She takes off her clothes, lies down on top of his body, and expresses how she wishes that he was awake to show her his husband love. Akari hopes that what happened with Shiori is not true, and that Jiro didn't abandon her as his wife. The next morning, Jiro wakes up surprised to see Shiori on top of him, looking like he gave her rounds of jackhammering. When Akari wakes up, she notices that Jiro is flustered, so she teases him, saying that he took her to Pound Town the night before and that she was screaming his name. Jiro starts thinking hard, realizing he forgot what happened and that he might be paying child support for the next 2 decades. He begs her to tell him if it really happened and that he's not a virgin anymore, but wanting to know what happened between him and Shiori. She returns the question and asks if last night was his first time. He tells her that it was, and Akari tells her that she was lying, relieved to know that nothing happened between him and Shiori. Jiro scolds her for lying and expresses how disappointed he is not to get a taste of Akari's sweet nectar. Akari pinches him and tells him how she would never clap him, knowing he has Shiori in his heart, but Akari hates how Jiro doesn't mind that he didn't pop his cherry with her. The next day, Kamo notices that something is wrong and asks Jiro about it, but it only reminds her of Akari's plotful body, and he starts panicking. Meanwhile, Shiori is doing her task of disposing of the garbage but struggles due to the weight. Just then, Sachi and Natsumi show up, and when they see what Shiori is dealing with, they offer their help. However, when Jiro and Kamo walk by, the girls order them to help them out with the task, and Natsumi rizzes up Kamo to get him to agree. Then they discuss their task distribution, and when the girls pair up Shiori with Jiro, she asks to be paired up with Sachi instead, and Jiro almost rejoins the earth after Shiori does that. Sachi apologizes for almost putting Shiori with Jiro, but after seeing her expression, the girls realize that Shiori has feelings for him. Later, while they're chilling with Akari, they ask her about her feelings for Jiro. Akari refuses to answer, but both of her friends know that Akari has feelings for Jiro and his godly Riz. They remind her about Minami and how she loved him, but also assure Akari that they support her decision to love either the hot Chad, Minami, or even the wimpy loser Jiro. Then, after Akari leaves, the two discuss Shiori's feelings for Jiro, and they worry that if Akari takes too long, Jiro will choose Shiori, but they both have a plan to ensure that Akari doesn't get heartbroken when they see a poster of a fireworks festival. Days later, after getting invited to the festival, Jiro helps Akari put on her yukata so she can look good for Minami, and she scolds him for not doing it perfectly, calling him a bum, but in his mind, Jiro really wants to pull her belt off and just expose her to shut her up. She shows him ways to tie the belt to ask for his opinion, and when he picks the ribbon-shaped one, she tells him that she doesn't want it, and that Minami would probably have a classier taste than his. Akari asks him if he's jealous, and when he shows that he's not, Akari gets upset. She starts yapping about how she's gonna have fun throwing it back for Minami, while Jiro is alone in this room with one hand in his pants, and Jiro gets annoyed hearing this from her. After finishing the back, Akari asks Jiro to work on her front, and when he reaches it from her back, they both feel the suffocating tension between them as Akari's fabric is so thin that Jiro can feel her body touching his. Then Akari gets to the festival where Sachi and Natsumi praise her, saying that she looks so good, Minami will start barking for her kitty. They inform Akari that they have briefed Minami's friends about how Akari likes Minami, and while she's panicking, they tell her that it's to help her get Minami. They assure her that her yukata will do the trick, but hearing that only reminds Akari of Jiro and how his hands were the ones that made her look this beautiful. She convinces herself that if she falls in love harder with Minami, it will make it less painful for her to support Jiro in his relationship. Just then, Minami's friends pop up, and they regretfully inform Akari and the girls that Minami is unable to come due to his part-time work. Sachi scolds these idiots for failing their mission, and one of the boys, Terafune, tries to make it up by rizzing Akari and replacing Minami, but Sachi pulls this crusty-looking moron away from her. After the boys leave, the girls apologize to Akari for the failed attempt, but she assures them she's okay and she walks around alone. It still lingers in her mind how much she prepared so much for this day just to get Minami's attention, but now that Minami is not here, Akari feels somewhat relieved and she wonders why. While holding the yukata, it scares Akari to know that neither Jiro nor Minami has feelings for her. Just then, some people are talking about a beautiful couple, and when Akari looks at who it is, her heart shatters when she sees Minami with Shiori at the festival together. Akari falls deep in her thoughts, asking if she should give up, but before she gets to a darker place, her friends call out for her. Seeing how sad she looks, the friends suggest that Akari go home considering Minami is not here, and they embrace her before Akari leaves. Meanwhile, Minami and Shiori are out of the festival, as it turns out they were not on a date, but instead going through a shortcut to reach Minami's workplace. Minami thanks Shiori for showing him the way, and she tells him that because they're a couple, they have to work hard for each other. Back home, Jiro is all alone and lonely, not being able to whack one out due to his loneliness. He starts thinking about Akari and how much fun she must be having with Minami at that moment while he's all alone on that balcony. He starts asking questions about who he will be when he stops being Akari's husband and realizes that compared to Minami, he won't be anyone in Akari's life. Just then, Akari calls him, and in tears, she begs him to comfort her. Jiro hurries himself to find her, and when he steps out of the door, he finds her outside, sitting on the floor. Akari vents out her feelings and how she's a failure, and Jiro welcomes her back to comfort her. Then, they watch the fireworks from the balcony, and Akari asks Jiro if she looks cute in her yukata. Jiro tells her she prefers the ribbon, and she knows that Jiro just feels jealous, but unlike before, Jiro doesn't deny it, which surprises Akari. She then puts his hands on her body and tells her that he can put her in a ribbon that he loves so much. He goes behind her and struggles to do it, so he pulls out his phone to read the instructions. When Akari goes to help, his phone slips, and Jiro catches it while also putting his hands around her like he's about to give the most devious backshots. Instead of letting go, Akari asks him to call her first name so she can gain her confidence. Jiro does exactly that, and when Akari enjoys it, he whispers her name over and over again. The fireworks continue, making the shape of hearts, and while they enjoy the show, Akari thanks him for not asking what happened to her. Jiro wonders why, despite having Shiori in his heart, he feels relieved that Akari comes back for him. Meanwhile, Shiori is feeling lonely, pondering about how Jiro hasn't talked with her since they kissed in the nurse's office. Akari, on the other hand, is still depressed after what happened in the festival, while convincing herself that she still loves Minami. The next morning, they receive the test results and they still fall short of the A rank, but Akari still feels optimistic about their chances. Later, while taking a bath, Jiro thinks deeply about how Shiori cried the other day and how much she wanted to be with Minami. Suddenly, Akari barges into the bathroom in a panic, not caring that Jiro is exposed while washing himself and his worm. Akari panics and tells Jiro that someone is stalking her, and when Jiro asks who, she tells him that a spider is stalking her sweet cheeks. Jiro scolds her for bothering him just for some clapped spider, but Akari doesn't care and pulls him to the living room. There they can't find it, and when Jiro asks her for the spider's size, she shows with her fingers that it's still bigger than your tiny worms. Fearing that the spider might pop out, Akari refuses to let Jiro's hand off her melons and begs him to accompany her to get some snacks. They chill on the couch, and with Akari's body sticking to him, Jiro tries his best not to wake up his snake. Just then, Akari starts fidgeting around, and when Jiro notices her, she begs him to accompany her pee. Then Jiro waits outside while inside, Akari pees, and she keeps calling out for Jiro to make sure he doesn't leave her behind. After some golden fountain noises, Akari exits the room, but Jiro wants to pee as well, so they switch roles. While waiting for Jiro, Akari realizes just how kind-hearted Jiro really is to deal with her silly demands, and when Jiro is done with his business, he offers to hold her hand, which Akari happily holds. Then they go back to the living room, and while Jiro is eating ice cream, Akari asks to have a bite. Jiro tries to reject her, but after Akari uses her riz and says that she wants his sweet vanilla cream, Jiro folds and feeds her some. She then asks him what if they met as strangers at the start, and while Jiro believes that they won't interact with each other, Akari disagrees and states that she would love to meet Jiro, who's not her husband. Suddenly, Akari offers him to date her, and while she tells him she is joking, Jiro surprises himself as he actually thought she was serious, but unbeknownst to him, Akari is thinking about it as well. Just then, Akari sees the bug, and when she gets scared, she puts Jiro in positions that every man wishes a girl would squeeze them in. Later, they joke around about how Minami could be scared of bugs when he becomes Akari's husband, but Akari is not worried as she knows that Jiro will be there for her. When Jiro is asleep that night, Akari faces toward his room and holds the wall, imagining that he's sleeping next to her. Meanwhile, Shiori is alone on the balcony when Minami sees her and offers her to vent to him. Shiori then tells Minami that she accidentally kissed someone and that she's worried that her musty lips made it a bad experience for him. Minami understands that Shiori feels scared to ask, but he encourages her to have the confidence to ask for the sake of getting the answer she wants. The next day, she discusses with Mei about clothes Mei should wear, but Mei keeps suggesting that Shiori should switch it up and present herself to Jiro in her birthday suit. Shiori wants to focus on Mei's clothes, but Mei keeps resisting and rizzes her up, saying that Shiori can dress Mei in any way she likes as long as there is a game of scissors in the end. And here Shiori sees why girls want to date Mei. Just then, Terafune, who is Mei's practical husband, walks in to inform them that Minami and him will be singing karaoke until late and that Mei should spend the night together with Shiori. Terafune whispers to Mei to take her shot, and Mei starts panicking, but Shiori sees this as a great idea. Later, Terafune hangs out with Minami and Kamo's brother, and it surprises Terafune that Kamo has an older brother. But talking about Kamo, Minami mentions Jiro, which pisses off Terafune. To him, Jiro is the bane of his existence and the itch on his crotch, and because of him, he couldn't get closer to Akari. Meanwhile, Shiori is discussing her sleepover plans with Mei, and when Shiori mentions that they should bathe together, Mei starts tweaking and imagining the possibilities. However, when Shiori mentions how she wants to see her old pictures with Jiro, Mei realizes that there is no place for scissors in this relationship, so she tells Shiori that they need to cancel their sleepover. In another restaurant, Jiro is discussing about summer with Kamo, and Kamo expresses how lucky Jiro is to be able to see Akari in her most plotful state. Kamo gets even more jealous after hearing that he got to kiss both Shiori and Akari, but because of this, he intends to erase the sensations from his lips. At that very moment, Shiori walks past the restaurant, and when she looks inside, she sees Kamo trying to slither his tongue inside Jiro's mouth. But when Jiro spots her, he quickly headbutts Koma and chases after her. He explains that the kiss was just a misunderstanding, and while sad, Shiori understands that his kiss with her is an accident. After a moment, they both realize they are talking about different kisses, and both get embarrassed. He notices her heavy baggage, and when he helps her, they carry it together. They both imagine that carrying it together is what it's like to be married to each other. Shiori talks about their accidental kiss, and instead of being flustered, she expresses how much she enjoyed it and is thankful for it. They look at each other deeply. But before they get to kiss, a black cat stops them both from making Jiro Jr. The next day, the teacher announces the start of summer break, but Jiro is still worried about unresolved emotions between him and both Akari and Shiori. Then, Kamo shows Jiro a poster of a part-time job with his older brother as the boss, and that he has registered both of them without Jiro's permission. Jiro scolds him for it, showing that he doesn't want to join him, but suddenly, Shiori pops up and hands it to them. When she sees the poster, she informs them that she will also be working there, and when Kamo tells her that he and Jiro will also be there, Shiori feels happy to hear that. Jiro changes his tune and is now excited to start working as Shiori will be there with him. He starts imagining all the moments he and Shiori can share together, but Kamo reminds him that he will need Akari's permission to work. When Jiro gets home, he gets greeted by Akari in a swimsuit and starts folding to the bouncing milkies. Akari informs him that she's going to the beach with her friends and asks Jiro for his opinion, but Jiro keeps on staring at her as he can't help but get lost in her sauce. She quickly puts on Jiro's jacket on, calls Jiro a creep, and teases him for almost painting his pants white. Jiro asks her if there will be boys on her trip, and while she thinks that he's jealous, Jiro expresses that he actually feels better knowing there are guys that she knows can protect her. Akari reveals that she is actually going on a part-time job at the beach and not a vacation. Jiro adds that he's doing the same after Kamo registers him, which surprises Akari to hear. But when Jiro mentions that Shiori will be there, Akari's tone changes. She expresses her happiness for Jiro to finally start making moves towards Shiori's love, but also shows that she feels jealous. Akari gets on top of Jiro, demanding that he tell her that he will miss her. When Jiro refuses to do it, Akari gets aggressive and bounces on him, while Jiro wishes that they weren't wearing clothes. Akari suddenly starts crying, and when Jiro comforts her, she expresses how much she will miss him during summer. Akari hugs him even tighter, telling Jiro that she's charging her battery, and while he wants to grab her rice cakes, he holds himself back with willpower stronger than Goku. After calming down, Akari asks Jiro for his opinion of her swimsuit, and when Jiro tells her that he likes it so much that his pants start hurting, Akari declares that she will wear her other swimsuit. Jiro frustratingly asks her why, and she tells him that she will keep this swimsuit only for when he and her go to a beach alone. Just then, Jiro notices her job poster and realizes that they're going to the same part-time job. Afterward, they arrive at the island where they all are working by boat, and after Minami takes them on a tour of the place where they'll be staying, they go to the cafe where they will work and try out their waiter uniforms. Then the boss orders the workers to make pairs for the job where they are divided into kitchen jobs and floor jobs. After hearing this instruction, Shiori asks Jiro to pair up with her in the kitchen, and he happily agrees, making his romantic dream come true. At that time, Akari is with Minami working at the cashier, where she can finally get closer to him. But Terafune watches from afar in pain, seeing his beloved Akari getting folded up by Minami's godly Riz. Sachi and Natsumi mock him for being the loser who doesn't get the girl, saying how Minami is going to date Akari and take her sweet cheeks away from Terafune. But Terafune doesn't get upset and tells them that Akari will never get Minami as he knows something that they don't, and he refuses to share. Meanwhile, Mei is telling Shiori to make her move, encouraging her to win over Jiro. Mei assists her by calling Jiro for help, telling him that Shiori needs something from the top shelf, and when Kamo shows up to disturb them, Mei drags him outside and gives him a different job to prevent Shiori's attempt to get the pipe from getting bothered. Back in the kitchen, Shiori is teaching Jiro how to apply whipped cream to desserts, but while she's teaching him, she whispers knockily in his ear, telling him not to cream too fast to prevent making a mess everywhere. Just then, Shiori touches him to guide him, and Jiro starts blasting his cream everywhere, causing them to look like the girls from a 1-hour Johnny Sins film. When Jiro cleans her face, Shiori feels happy that she gets to feel Jiro's warm hands, but she wants more than her hands and goes in for the kiss. However, she spots Natsumi and Sachi peeking and starts screaming out of embarrassment. While they are both flustered, Shiori feels happy with herself, knowing that she gets to make some plot progression with Jiro. After they got their work done, the group play at the beach where the girls swing their melons around while the boys enjoy for the culture. Just then, Kamo tells Jiro to look at Akari's swimsuit, but Jiro notices that she's wearing a different one from the one she showed him, and he realizes that she might be keeping that one for him only. Mei and Shiori show up to join them, but before they get the party started, Shiori states that they have something to do and points at a hotel, making them think that she wants to run a train. Then, they instead build a sand castle, inspired by the hotel, which is what Shiori was pointing at. Kamo can't help himself but stare at the girls and informs Jiro about the creamy melons, and Jiro joins in staring at Shiori. Just then, Shiori tells Jiro that they should make a hole in the castle just like how they did in their childhood, and when they reach inside, they hold each other's hand, but far away, Akari watches them jealously. Later, Jiro and Akari are tasked to buy food for the group, and when they get in line, they see a poster that gives discounts for couples. Akari suggests that they should use it, and while Jiro doesn't want to, Akari does it anyway. When they get to order, Akari plays the role of girlfriend perfectly, while Jiro laughs nervously like a buffoon, and after, Akari scolds him for it, stating that he should proudly declare that Akari is his baby mama. Then, their order is ready, and when Jiro goes to get it, leaving Akari, some dudes approach her, wanting a piece of her sweet cheeks. When they see Jiro, they laugh at his ugly face compared to Akari, and they demand that he share Akari with them. But when Jiro sees that Akari is scared, he pulls her into his embrace and declares that she is his wife. It scares them off, and while Akari is flustered, Jiro apologizes to Akari for saying that she is his wife, knowing that she will hate it. However, Akari gets even more upset with Jiro, saying that she doesn't hate being called that, and that he looked very Sigma when he did that. She asks Jiro to never apologize for that, and that he should be more daring as her husband during the marriage practical. Later, after going to the beach, Akari and her friends are taking a bath together when Shiori and Mei join them. While Sachi and Natsumi are venting about their practical husbands and how they have small willy energy, Shiori and Mei listen to them vent a little disturbed by their privacy. They start talking about Jiro and how lucky Akari is to have a closeted beast in the sack that can rock her world, but Mei has heard too much and tries to stop them. However, they invite both Mei and Shiori to join their gossip instead, and when Mei speaks, she preaches that Sun Tzu quote of how love is an explosion and the girls swarm her, asking for more advice. Shiori apologizes to Akari for not joining in due to her lack of experience, and Akari tells her that she's the same way. But when they think about romance, the two of them think about Jiro at that moment. Afterward, Akari runs into Jiro outside the bath, and when she sees his sunburned skin, she orders him to sit down so she can put some cream on his body. Jiro feels worried that someone will see them being close, but Shiori doesn't care about that as she is still his wife. While applying the cream, Akari notices that Jiro is not ticklish, so she tickles his body to get a reaction. When Jiro tries to stop her, Akari rests her head on him, hugs him, and expresses how much she misses doing this with him while they are back home. Just then, Sachi walks out, and the couple quickly act normal where Akari pretends that Jiro is going to buy the girls drinks. When Jiro goes to do it, Jiro calls Akari by her last name to avoid suspicion, but it only pisses her off Akari, and when she leaves, she texts Jiro, ordering him to meet her afterward in private at the beach. Later, the two of them go to the beach without the others knowing, but at the same time, Mei has the same idea and asks Shiori to walk around with her. At the beach, Jiro apologizes to Akari, even though he doesn't know what he did to upset her, and it angers Akari even more than before when Jiro keeps apologizing. Suddenly, Akari opens her hoodie zipper, and she reveals the special swimsuit she kept just for his eyes. She expresses how frustrated she is that Jiro acted coldly towards her outside their marriage like they don't know each other. Jiro tries to excuse himself by saying that Akari probably doesn't want to be seen with him, but she gets aggressive, pulls him to her plotful body, and tells him to gaze at her more like he used to back home. She pulls him even harder and forces him to look at what her mom made to make his pants bulge, but Jiro holds back and calms her down. Akari expresses how she hates that he calls her by last name, and how he has fun with other girls than her, which scares Akari that he will stop being her husband at home. Seeing how she acts, Jiro asks Akari if she's jealous, and while she tries hard to deny it, she panics and makes herself look guilty. Suddenly, Shiori and Mei pop up from their walk, causing both Jiro and Akari to have to hide together in a tight room, squeezing their sweaty bodies together against each other while trying to stay quiet. With Jiro being so close to her, Akari realizes that deep down she has feelings, and it pains Akari to imagine a future where Jiro picks Shiori, leaving her alone and empty without his love. While the tension between them is brewing, Akari begs Jiro not to leave her, and Mei hears a voice coming from them and investigates. She goes to check, believing that someone is there, but finds nothing. In their tight space, Jiro is dripping sweat on Akari, which makes her very sensitive in the right spots, and it causes her to make happy noises and rummage around the space. Shiori and Mei hear this, thinking someone is doing hot yoga, and they quickly leave, not wanting to make this a four-way. After the coast is clear, Akari asks Jiro to get off her body, but Jiro refuses to do so as he realizes that Akari has been playing with his feelings by showing him her plots and tempting him all the time. After seeing this side of Jiro, Akari completely opens herself for Jiro's pipe, and while she tells him that she hates him, deep down she wants his golden pickle. When Jiro takes a step closer, Akari tells him to get his knee off her kitty, but Jiro informs Shiori that it's not his knee, but his third leg touching her, which surprises her. Akari feels somewhat glad to know that Jiro is attracted to her, and just as he's about to show her why they called him the blue-haired Johnny Sins, Jiro collapses due to getting a heat stroke. After he wakes up, Jiro apologizes for what he did to her, but Shiori asks him not to be sorry. She calls him out for only gazing at her body, asking him to see the other parts of herself, while she will see the other parts of him as they are married. It makes Jiro happy to hear Akari say that, but he feels conflicted hearing that Akari is willing to do this only because they are married. The next morning, Shiori is unable through the night because the night before, she found out that Akari was just at the beach, and when she looked at the beach, she saw Jiro there, which made her think that something happened. On his way to the bathroom, Jiro meets Shiori, and when she's about to confront him about what she saw, she stops herself from doing so and continues her day. Then Jiro walks into Akari in the bathroom, and while they are brushing their teeth, it amazes Jiro that Akari is able to act nonchalantly after what happened last night. She notices his reaction and starts teasing him for what happened in that tight space, and when Jiro gets flustered, Akari leaves saying that it's a secret between them. Later at work, Jiro talks to Shiori about the courage test they will face tonight, and Shiori expresses how scared she is facing it and how she fears that she will burden her partner. Jiro tells her that he wishes that they would be paired together so that she won't be embarrassed, and after hearing this, Shiori tells Jiro how much she loves that kind side of his. Just then, they freeze, realizing what Shiori just said, and they both quickly brush it off and deem it in friendly terms. However, when Shiori leaves the room, Jiro is thinking hard about it when Kamo pops up teasing him and expresses his jealousy about how Jiro gets to be passed around between two girls that any man would like to clap. Suddenly, Kamo starts being cool and yaps about how he, as Jiro's wingman, is able to help him cheat and be Shiori's partner for the courage test by buying Kamo his dating sim gacha. He explains further that the partners will be picked through lottery and that it can be cheated as Kamo's older brother is the person who held the event. Jiro gladly accepts Kamo's irresistible offer, but he remembers Akari and asks Kamo to pair up Akari with Minami, saying that he wants Akari to have her dream come true as well. Later, when the girls pick up their lottery, Mei watches them closely, and she secretly hands that information to Kamo for him to use. She asks Kamo why he's using methods like this instead of marking the lottery for the pairing to pick, and Kamo tells Mei that he feels that Shiori would object to a cheap trick like that, and here, Mei realizes that he is actually a good person. Later that night, the group gathers in pairs for the courage test, and they start the event. Akari feels happy that she gets to be with Minami, but when he holds her hand, she can't help but imagine Jiro when he held her hand, remembering how soft his hands were when he touched her. Just then, Akari searches her pocket and realizes that she dropped her smartphone. Hours later, all the pairings return except for Akari and Minami, who are still deep in the forest. Terafune gets worried, but Sachi tells him to leave them be, stating that they are probably off playing hide Miani's pickle in the forest. But hearing this, Jiro feels conflicted, and he is confused as to why he feels that way. Just then, Kamo's older brother gets a phone call from Minami, who informs him that after Akari drops her phone, they go looking for it, but it causes them to get separated and that Akari is all alone. Jiro feels worried, and while Kamo's older brother assures him that they will be fine and that the rest should go back to the resort, even with Shiori convincing him to go back, Jiro refuses to leave Akari behind and goes looking for her. He screams out her name, hoping she will respond, but instead of finding Akari, he finds her phone on the floor. Meanwhile, Akari is all alone in the dark, feeling pity about herself who can only count on other people. Suddenly, she hears a noise and screams out Jiro's name, but it turns out to be Minami, who manages to track her down. Then Minami takes Akari to shelter themselves from the rain, and after what he just saw, he apologizes to her that he is not Jiro. Akari tries to explain herself, but Minami keeps laughing at the situation, knowing that Akari holds feelings for Jiro. Meanwhile, Jiro is still in the woods when Shiori appears with an umbrella. She informs him that Akari is safe and was found by Minami. After hearing this, Jiro expresses to Shiori how much of a useless loser he is for failing to find Akari, and that he should have just waited instead of looking for her like a headless chicken. Shiori rejects his way of thinking and tells Jiro that from the start of the marriage practical, he has been a total skibidi sigma, and that she feels jealous of how Akari gets to see the husband side of him Shiori could never see. Jiro assures her that he is the same person with or without the marriage practical, but seeing his facial reaction, Shiori knows that Jiro has shown Akari sides that Shiori has never seen before. Just then, Jiro asks her about their kiss and if Shiori continues practicing by kissing Minami. Shiori blushes, and while Jiro assumes that Minami gets to taste Shiori's lips every day, Shiori assures him that he has been the only one she kissed. Shiori tries running away from this situation, but when Jiro goes after her, Shiori embraces him, begging him to show her a side that Akari will never get to see. Back with Akari, Minami expresses how seeing her with Jiro is like seeing his little sister with her boyfriend, and Akari realizes that she is getting the non-Alabama sister zoned by him. Akari convinces Minami that his feelings can change if they pair up for the marriage practical, but Minami tells her that they can't. He reveals that he has known about her feelings for him, and while he feels happy that she feels love for him, Minami loves someone else. When Akari asks him if it's Shiori, Minami laughs at her question, telling her that they have nothing going on between them and that the person he really loved was someone he once saw get clapped. Minami expresses how it was painful for him and how he doesn't want Akari to face the same thing, so he encourages Akari to confront her feelings for Jiro and win his love. Minami apologizes to Akari for not returning her love back, but Akari starts crying, demanding that he never apologize for that, stating that the times that she was in love with him was a happy time for her. After they calm down, Akari declares that she will win Jiro's heart, and it warms Minami to see Akari so optimistic. Moments later, Akari falls asleep on Minami's shoulder, and when he sees her face, Minami wishes the best for Jiro and her. But while this is happening, Jiro is busy kissing Shiori deeply as they tongue wrestle each other. Weeks after the beach trip, Akari goes to the same shrine she visited at the start, and she prays to the anime gods to make her win over Jiro's heart. Meanwhile, Shiori can't stop thinking about her kiss with Jiro and wonders if Jiro felt any love for her when they kissed in the rain. Back in his home, Jiro is still also haunted by his kiss with Shiori, and he feels frustrated not knowing why Shiori apologized after the kiss, thinking that his mouth was crusty that night. To get his mind away from it, he goes to the bookstore to buy himself some comic books, but when he tries to reach for them, Shiori happens to also want the same book. They both get surprised to see each other there, and he asks Shiori if she is an anime fan just like him, but she says that she is not and that she is picking up the book for her brother. Jiro feels relieved that they get to speak normally like this instead of being awkward with each other before the new school year. When they leave the store, it starts raining, and while Jiro is desperately looking for things to talk about with her, Shiori pulls out her big willy energy and invites Jiro to her home while waiting for the rain to stop. Before Jiro enters her place, she comes in first to tidy up, and then greets him like her husband, which almost folds Jiro. Inside, Jiro looks around, realizing the room is similar to his, and Shiori drinks coffee with him. Then they read their own books, and Jiro feels happy to be there, knowing that a girl who is softer than pillows is next to him. They make eye contact with each other, and when the mood gets too awkward, Shiori retreats to her room. She starts arguing with herself whether Jiro dislikes her or not while Jiro is doing the same, thinking that Shiori hates him for not being assertive. Just then, Shiori tells him to look outside where they see a double rainbow, and Shiori takes a picture of them with the rainbow. Jiro sees this chance to confess, but before he does it, Shiori shows him their group picture at the beach. After seeing Akari in the picture, he pulls back his confession. Back home, Jiro is still thinking about his cancelled confession when Akari texts him, asking to hang out. On the other side, Akari is nervous while texting Jiro, but she gathers her courage and invites Jiro on a date. Jiro starts panicking, thinking that he's about to get tricked by Akari, but he shows up anyway with the hope of not getting tricked. After 15 minutes, Akari shows up in a hurry, apologizing for being late. When Jiro looks at her, Akari asks if she looks cute, and while Jiro half-heartedly calls her cute, Akari feels happy. She reveals that she bought the clothes she's wearing just for him, and she pulls him away to start their date. They first go to a cafe where Jiro has never been before, but he recognizes the cafe as the place Akari really likes, and Akari feels happy to know that Jiro pays attention to her. She asks a sip from his drink, and while he hesitates at first, he gives it to her. When Akari sees his reaction, she knows that his virgin brain must be thinking about an indirect kiss. Then, Akari takes Jiro to a cat cafe, and they can't believe how cute the cats are. While Akari plays with the cat, she asks Jiro to join her in petting it. Later, she shows him a picture of them with the cat, but after seeing it, Jiro expresses how they look like a married couple who just had a baby. Jiro quickly realizes how creepy he sounded, but unlike before, Akari laughs at his words, and it surprises Jiro that Akari doesn't think that he's disgusting, making him realize that they're on a real date. Later, they're about to split up to go home when Akari remembers she has forgotten her charm at the shrine. They run into Shiori on the way there, who is surprised to see them together on their days off. Shiori asks them where they're heading, and when Akari informs her that they're going to the shrine, Shiori wants to come with them to pray. She also suggests to Akari that they should race to get to the shrine first, and not wanting to be a coward loser, Akari accepts her challenge. They hand their stuff to Jiro and run towards the shrine, racing each other. They run past some kids resembling Shiori's childhood with Jiro, a couple resembling Akari's desire, a married couple resembling the future both girls want, and a growing family which is the dream of any girl. Deep down, they acknowledge that they will be competing against each other for the same man, but they reach the shrine at the same time and call it a tie. Just then, an old lady pops up out of nowhere greeting them, and beside her is an old man named Jiro who looks like Jiro. But when Jiro finally catches up with them, the old couple disappears. All three of them pray to the anime gods, and while the girls want to be Jiro's girl, Jiro is praying for both girls to be his baby mamas. If you watched this anime recap and made it to the end, comment fake wives gobbling real glizzies. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.